Hey everyone, Carrie Beck here with Homeschool Coffee Break, where we help you stop the overwhelm so you can actually take a coffee break. Today we are here with Monica Irvine. We're going to be talking about manners, and I bet some of y'all are like, yeah, I would like to do that, but I'm not quite sure how to do it or whatever. Monica's got her old business, Etiquette Factory, and just thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Well, this I personally think is an important topic. Y'all know I believe character is foundational in everyone's life and with our homeschooling kids. And I think etiquette is just right up there. It just shows so much character when our kids learn manners. Before we dive into that, Monica, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I love to. I live in Knoxville, Tennessee. I'm a retired homeschool mom, and my kids are now, how old are my kids? 38, 36, and 28. And we've got three grandkids and counting. My husband and I have also owned restaurants in East Tennessee for the past 34 years, I guess, 33 years. Yeah, we're both born and bred in Tennessee. So this is home for us. Yeah, but the Etiquette Factory is a passion. I started it back in 2009. Like you, been at this for a while. Yeah,
Yes, we probably crossed paths at conventions back when we were
probably
actually going places and everything. So,
have.
well, let's talk about etiquette and manners. Could you tell our listeners just a little bit, maybe, why is this so important, especially in today's culture? And how does this go beyond just saying please and thank you? I mean, please and thank you are important. I mean, but that's just a little small part of it. So tell us
Yeah.
why and what how it goes beyond that.
Well, I'd love to. And I know sometimes over the years I've told my husband I should have named the company something besides the Etiquette Factory because I'll be at a convention and I can always see people's reaction. They look up and they read the sign and I can read their brain often where they're going, "Oh, that's great and all, but we've got more important things to worry about than what fork to eat your salad with." And to me, I know why it's so much more than that. So let me first give you the definition that we use for etiquette at the Etiquette Factory. And that is etiquette, which manners and etiquette, chivalry all mean the same thing. Etiquette is helping those around us to feel valued and comfortable. So years ago, I was homeschooling our kids, and we were studying the life of President George Washington. And what a fascinating life that man had. And as we were doing that, I stumbled upon George Washington's rules of civility and decent behavior. Many of you have read a couple of those. If not, just Google that, and you will see this list of 110 chivalry skills that, according to President Washington's journal, he put to memory at the age of 13. He actually copied these 110 chivalry rules out of a French book. We know that because we have a list of them in his handwriting in the Smithsonian. Well, as I started reading these rules, I can just tell you the spirit penetrated my heart. And being the mom of three boys, I was like, wow, my boys could benefit from knowing some of these. Of course, manners was always important to me. And so I said, let's start trying to memorize one of these a week and kind of having a manners thing each week. Well, so that's what we did. We started memorizing these chivalry skills. And although most of them were very applicable to today, there was always a few funny ones. And I'm just summarizing here, but one was it's not polite to remove lice from your companion in public. And I was like, that is good to know. I won't do that. But they just were so beautiful. And so me and the boys would talk about it, and something happened. And that is I started noticing a change in behavior. And it fascinated me because I was like, what's changed? I mean, I've always told my boys to have good manners. I've always taught them. And I think a light bulb moment happened when it dawned on me that usually 98% of the time when I was trying to teach my children manners was in the moment of correcting. Like one of my kids would say or do something that wasn't the most polite, and I would be, "Oh, honey, no, babe, you can't say that. That's not polite." And then I would go on to tell them why. And when all of a sudden I shifted to start having a daily manners lesson during the school day, when my heart was softer, my children's hearts were softer because they weren't being fussed at. And we just had a discussion about, well, how do we use our napkin correctly? Or how do you make an apology sound sincere? All of a sudden, my boys would be like, Mom, let's do another one. What's the next one? Let's go ahead and talk about the next one. And it literally is what changed everything. So I think what is most important is when we connect the dots that manners is helping those around us to feel valued. Just to give you one example, most people think of manners when they think of table manners, right? And usually, families sit around the table, and for parents that manners are important to them, their table sounds like this. Could you chew with your mouth closed? Honey, sit still in your chair. Stop making that noise. Get your elbow off the table. And it's just this constant correcting. But when I teach kids the definition of manners and I use an example like this, I'm like, okay, so if I came over and had dinner with you all, your family tonight, and I sat down and I started eating like a pig. I mean, y'all, I'm chewing with my mouth open. I am making some weird noise with my tongue, or I eat so fast that I'm finished getting up and leaving the table when you're on your third bite. Any of those behaviors, I would be sending your family a message, and that message would be, look, I'm here for one person only, and that's myself. I really don't care if I'm grossing you out. I really don't care if I'm making y'all uncomfortable. And I really don't care if you actually wanted to visit with me. Because, like I said, I'm just here for myself to fill my belly and I'm moving on. And that's the most important thing to me. You all, that's what we don't want. You see, the lack of manners is called selfishness. Manners is just trying to get me and you and all of us to look outward, to pay attention to how our behavior or lack thereof is causing other people around us to feel. And if I can't show you how a manners rule doesn't help those around us to feel valued, well, to me, it's not etiquette.
That is so good, and that is so true. It's not for us to like follow these rigid things. It is all about the other people and how do we make them feel comfortable. I love the idea of being valued and being comfortable around someone. So I know this includes things like kindness and respect. Can you give us some ideas on how moms could either do that? Or my other thought was, how do they go from just learning the rules to actually internalizing some of that?
Well, for me, and the way we go about teaching children is we try to actually tug on their heartstring a little bit. What I mean by that is usually it's when our emotions are hit that we change our behavior. So for instance, let's say that our child has a habit of leaving their dirty clothes and wet towel on the bathroom floor. And most of us would handle it this way. Get your towel off the floor. Come get your clothes. And usually it's in frustration, right? Well, all of a sudden, when you sit down with your kids and say, let's talk about, for instance, the way we leave the bathroom for the next person that uses it. If I go into the restroom and I make a mess, however that happens, whether it's my dirty clothes, my wet towel, I leave the sink full of spit and toothpaste, or I don't have the commode, nice and tidy. Do you want do you want to come in after me? If you know that I'm the person that leaves the bathroom like that, would you rather use the restroom before me or after me? Well, what if I came in and did that, but then it was your job to clean the bathroom each day, knowing how reckless I was with the bathroom? I asked my kids, would you want that job? Well, why wouldn't you want that job? Well, after you spent a lot of time cleaning the bathroom and I came in and just disregarded, I mean, why wouldn't you like that? How would that make you feel? Well, does it cross over into you wondering if I care also about you? You see, if I don't care about your time, if I don't care about the efforts you make, if I don't care that I'm making life more difficult for you or unpleasant for you, isn't that another way of saying I don't care about you? My point is, obviously, if I'm talking to children and if it's my child, this is a back and forth conversation, and and we're feeding off of our children. But so often, you all, we just teach those precepts and concepts right in the moment of our children, as I said earlier, making a mistake. And whether you're 3 years old or 30 years old, none of us like to be corrected. And what happens is when someone starts correcting us, we harden. It's like self-defense. We kind of brace ourselves for the punch that's coming. And even when mom or dad are trying to be gentle, like, oh, honey, we can't do that, it still feels like a punch. And so, what we do at the Etiquette Factory is we try to help parents see that the best time for your children to actually absorb information is when their heart is soft. Well, what helps your child's heart to soften is to place them in another person's shoes, to start helping them feel the feelings, the emotions that happen when people are reckless with us. And so at the Etiquette Factory, we created a curriculum to little daily or once a week. We think the ideal is twice a week, 15 minutes of your school day. We've organized little lessons to help parents tug on their child's heartstring. And we find that it changes everything.
That's so good. And really, that's true all of life. It's better to learn things outside the situation, and to talk about it beforehand. I don't know how much role playing you do, but it's like, let's talk about if this were going to happen, what are different ways we could react to that? So I love that. And you talk about these like short little, maybe 15-minute things. Are there some everyday habits that families could just start to get into to develop some sort of culture of etiquette at their home?
Yes, so I'll give y'all a lesson, one of our lessons. So one of our
Okay.
lessons is the stand-up lesson. So if we were at an event and someone brought in the American flag, what would we all do? We stand up. And why do we stand up? Well, we stand up because of the honor and respect that we have for what that flag represents. And if you're like me, it's difficult for me to watch the American flag be brought in without feeling that tug on my heartstring. So the same thing happens in our home. So the etiquette skill is that today, still in the 21st century, it is polite for children to stand for adults and for gentlemen to stand for ladies. So I use the word honor a lot because I want to raise and wanted to raise honorable children. Well, what does it mean to be honorable? Well, to be honorable, you have to do some honorable things. And honorable things always, 100% of the time, require some level of sacrifice. That's what makes them honorable. When you give of yourself in order to bless, help someone else. Well, so this act of standing is this small little sacrifice where we stand to show honor to someone else. So how would this look in our home? It would look like this. Hopefully, our families still eat at the table at least 3 or 4 times a week. But so mom or dad might say, "Hey, family, it's time for dinner." And so our family would come to the table and all of us would stand behind our chair until the person we're honoring sits down. Typically, I would suggest that that person first be mom. So mom is the first person that sits down, or the cook. Maybe tonight it's grandma. Maybe tonight we've invited our neighbors over, so we know that we're going to honor our neighbors and that we're going to say, please, after you, please go ahead and sit down. And so then after mom or the cook or the host or our guests sit down, then all of the ladies at the table sit down. And so that means that maybe your 5-year-old son is standing for his 14-year-old sister. Now, parents, before you throw tomatoes at me through the screen, the thing is I'll get mothers that say, Monica, I do not need my kids to stand for me. And I want to say to you, it's really not for you. You see, it's for them. You see, if you want your children, especially those boys and girls, to stand with honor, to have dignity, to have self-respect, they must sacrifice. But what do we do today in our world? Well, the last time you and your family had a big gathering, maybe 4th of July, who were actually the first people that had their plates prepared? 98% of you are going to say the kids. Because, see, at some point, our society decided that was easier. Oh, yeah, so we got to get the kids, get their plates, get their drink, make sure they have everything they need. Oh, honey, do you have everything? Okay, you got everything? Okay, sit down. And we think if we get the kids situated, then us adults can go over here and eat peacefully because we're not being bothered by the needs of our children. And then we're the same adults that want to walk around this earth complaining about the entitled generation. And I'm like, parents, so you're going to let your children have their plates fixed before their grandmother? Are you crazy? We've got to stop it because I believe that this behavior is hurting our children. You see, our society continues to strip away opportunities for children to show respect, to have dignity. Like all of these kids are allowed to call all the adults in their life by their first name. Oh, my kids' friends just, their children just call me Monica because we're so close. And I want to just scream and say, listen, your kids, their kids, your kids, they don't need more Monicas in their life. They need Mrs. Irvin in their life. Because when you have that kind of respect, that you acknowledge the adults in your life in a different way, it helps the relationship be more appropriate. And so constantly we allow kids to just be the center of our universe, and it's not healthy for them. I went to a convention not long ago and I went to speak. Now I walk into my room and the room is full. There are people standing along all 3 walls. Um, and and so I got up to the microphone and I look up and I just notice how many children are in the chairs. And there was a really big aisle in the middle and on both sides. And I look over here to my side and I notice there's a woman stand. There were a lot of women standing, but there was a woman over here to my side standing with a stroller in front of her. and she was clearly pregnant. And I'm sitting there thinking, how did we get here? How did we get here where I've got a pregnant mother over here and I've got men and children in these chairs? And I can't take it. So I, as politely as I could in that little microphone, I go, "Hey, you all. Hey, I know we're full. I'm so grateful to be here with you, but I notice we've got some women. I wanted to say, like the pregnant woman over here, but I said, we've got some women standing that looks like they need a chair. So if you could have your children maybe sit in the aisle and maybe sit on the ground." And I meant it. And you know what was interesting is I noticed there was this one little boy who heard me. He was probably 10 years old. He immediately got up to get in the floor, and his mother took her hand and put it on his knee, and she said, "No, stay." And the thing
Oh,
is, I knew what they were thinking, is they were like, "Look, we got here early so we could get a seat. And if you wanted to make sure you got a chair, you should have got here early like us. But I'm not going to make my child sit on the floor because you decided not to get here early." See, that's our mentality today. And I know that actually, though, it's harming our children, in my opinion. And so we've got to do better, you all. And so, teach your children the stand-up skill. And I know the thing is I know what's going to happen is when families start to practice these skills, the love in that family, the peace in that family grows. It just does because that's what happens when someone sacrifices themselves for us. It endears us to each other. And today, we don't create enough experiences for our children to sacrifice for others. And so that's an etiquette skill that we could put into practice immediately.
I love all of that. It brought back so many memories because we've got two girls and a boy, and Hunter's the youngest. And I still remember when we would come to the dinner table, I was always the last one in the room because I was trying to get the food on the table. But actually, we didn't do the honor for the one person, but Steve and Hunter stood by their chairs until the girls and I were seated, and then they would sit down. We actually, for a while, lived in Idaho, and that was just the culture where you went over to someone's home, and all the men and all the boys stood until the women were seated. And there's so many good things. I mean, if nothing else, preparing them to take care of a wife and to treat them with honor and respect. When you go out to dinner, usually they hold the chair out for you and then the man sits down. And I'll give you one more example. The other thing I didn't think of, but a friend of mine did, who had like four boys and one girl, and we were going to a restaurant, and every door we came to, one of her boys would hold the door open and let everyone in. And so Hunter was the youngest, and he had to start learning to hold the door open for his sisters who were older. And the girls would start to complain. We'd be in the car. I go, "No, you sit in the car until he comes around and opens the door. We can open the door ourselves." So we had to have this discussion. But I think about when you would go out, I don't know about today, but when we would go on a date, I would wait till Steve would come around and open the door for me. And it really is just a picture of honor and respect. I said I'm gonna give you one more thing. You said first names. So right before this, I was on a coaching call with Hunter's best friend, who they just decided to homeschool. They have four kids, I think. Anyway, they got a 7-year-old, and we were on the phone. And at the end, he says, "Oh, thank you, Mrs. Beck." And I had never really paid that much. I said, "Britton, you can call me Carrie." He goes, "I know I'm 31, but it just does not roll out." He goes, "Can I call you Miss Carrie?" I'm like, "You don't have to call me Miss Carrie, but if that makes you feel." And so then we get ready to close it. "Thank you, Miss Carrie." And I was like, but because those things have been instilled even till you're 31. You practice it over and over again, it just becomes a habit as well. So sorry, I just had to I just love
Love it.
everything you said. And the
Yeah.
pregnant, oh my gosh, I remember Steve would always get up when he would see women standing around the outside. I mean, I'm just so sorry that kids, that a mom, there are some other stories I could tell you when I was teaching, and it was all on character and stuff like that. And there would be a hush on the room when I would use an example, but I'm just so sorry
Well,
that that happened.
I know. And the thing is society is gonna, is push back against those things. And now listen, there are so many kind considerations
Yes.
that there it's not unequal. There's just as many things women should do for men as men should do for women. We just once again have different roles to play. I'm never gonna not look a man in the eye if he ever, or even a woman, if they hold the door for you or stand for you, you're gonna pause your life and look them in the eye and thank them very sincerely for being so kind. And so what we don't realize though is how much that affects our relationships. We all want happy, healthy relationships with our children, with our spouse, with our employees and colleagues and friends. And this is how you do it is you teach your children the skills of kindness. I know it's like what parent on this planet doesn't want their children to be kind? I mean, is there? And so if you have all these parents across the globe that want their children to be kind, why are we living in a less kind society? Well, because we stopped teaching the skills of chivalry. They literally used to be taught as President Washington recorded. And so when we stopped being proactively doing that, we started seeing that there's some gaps. It's like I was at a church potluck. This was before COVID. And, right after the blessing, we were in the big culture gymnasium. And as soon as the blessing ended, it was like a wild herd of animals charging the buffet. And I looked and watched this transpire. Here we are Christians. Here we are the supposed to be the light of the world. And and all the kids and the teenagers were in the front of the line, piling cookies and everything on their plates to see if they could get all the good stuff before everyone else. And the line formed, and about three-quarters of the way down the line was Mr. and Mrs. Honecker in their 80s. Mr. Honecker on a walker. And I look around and just I'm kind of observing the parents. And it sounds like I just sit there and I'm in judgment. No, y'all, I just sit there and it makes me sad. Mr. and Mrs. Honecker were waiting in this line with all these kids and teenagers in front of them, and the parents are just oblivious. And so I am calling the world to, hey, y'all, this is not okay. Stop. This is this is not working. This is not godly. Manners is the gospel of Jesus Christ in action. It's loving one another, putting others first. Those that will be first will be last, and those that are last will be first. These are gospel principles. And so we've got to tie all of this back into the gospel of Jesus Christ because that's where it's born from. And it takes practice. Like when I'm teaching children and families how to help their children to greet people and introduce themselves, it's not just that we're supposed to introduce ourselves, it's just that greeting people is another way to help people to feel valued. For instance, the last time you and the children, meaning you, all of us and our children, went through the Walmart checkout line, what were our children doing? Were they obsessing over the candy? Mom, can I have this? Can I have this? Were we on our phone scrolling through social media while we're waiting? We're all getting tricked by the enemy into this self-absorption. Whereas if I teach my kids how to value others right before we go through the groceries checkout line, I'm going to say, hey, kids, what are we about to do? Check out, Mom. What does that mean? We're going to help the cashier feel valued. That's right. And so then my children all know to say, hello, how are you doing today? Oh, good afternoon. What's your name? It starts there. And that's how you begin teaching your children to look outward, to pay attention to those around us. But you've got to be very purposeful in that. And we try to help families become very purposeful in teaching those skills.
That's so good. In the middle of what you were saying a while back, the word humility just kept coming up to my mind. And the idea of Philippians 2, where Jesus is the perfect example of humility and giving of himself and how he will be honored. Well, he is honored, but where every knee will bow. So those were just thoughts that were coming through as you were talking. So I really appreciate you bringing this down to the gospel. And it really is sacrifice and that there's benefits for all of us when we sacrifice. We think it's just like, oh, I gotta do this, that, or the other. But like you said, builds relationships. And even though my girls complained about having to sit in the car sometimes while they waited on their brother, those three kids are such good friends. And I do believe it's because we spent so much time together, but they still keep up with each other, even though two of them have kids and running around and don't really have that much time, but they make a point to be at each other's house for whatever functions we're doing and to spend time with them. So
Yeah.
if people want to
Exactly.
get hold of you or learn more about your courses and everything, where could they go?
So the etiquettefactory.com, and that's another reason I told my husband I should have named it something else because no one knows how to spell etiquette. But etiquette is one T at the beginning, two T's at the end, the etiquettefactory.com. So yeah, we've got some wonderful programs. I put these boxes out because there are two most popular programs. This is our preschool through third grade course called Fundamentals for Kids. Y'all, it's awesome. It's a lot of fun. So with little kids, we find that they need to play a game. They need to sing about it, hear a story, make a craft. And that's what Fundamentals for Kids is. It's twice a week. You pull something out of the box and we help you have a conversation with your kids. We're trying to trigger a conversation. I'll give you an example. Like there's a board game about Rose and the Lost Boy. The lost boy is kind of like Tarzan, got lost in the jungle, been hanging out with his jungle friends so much, his manners have become a little shaky. So on the board game, there's a question. It says, Rose was talking to Sean one day, and she noticed that Sean had really bad breath. Well, what should she do? A, say, excuse me, Sean, did you know your breath smelled like dead fish and old bananas? B, she could say, oh, clearly no one's ever taught you how to brush your teeth. Or C, she should say nothing because it's not polite to point out others' poor hygiene. So, with all of our games and activities, we're trying to trigger a conversation between parents and children where you go, can we tell people they smell bad? Well, who's allowed to tell you it's time to take a bath or brush your teeth? Because typically we teach that right in the middle, right after our child just told grandpa that he smelled bad. And then we're over there going, no, you can't say that. And so that's really fun. And then the life skills for you is for fourth, fifth grade, all the way through seniors. In fact, it can count as a half a credit for our high schoolers. And it is just some wonderful life chivalry lessons. We actually show videos of teenagers doing the skills the wrong way and the right way. So it's just a big hoot, laugh, and a lot of fun. But yeah, so they can reach out and just look at our products and reach out to me directly on the website with questions.
That is awesome. So wherever y'all listening to this, those links will be right below us in the show notes. So you can just click on those and head on over there because I know these are going to be some awesome products that can come alongside you. And again, make it where you're not just um, teaching in the moment. think about it ahead of time. So, well, before we close out, is there anything you would like to share?
Oh, just if I could go back in time and tell my new homeschool mom self, give myself any advice, and you probably have already told your listeners this more than once, it would be relax. Just relax. If we all sent our kids to public school, there would be some gaps in their education when they graduated. And if we sent them to private school, there would be some gaps in their education. And as we homeschool, when they graduate, there's going to be some gaps. But it doesn't matter about the gaps. What matters is that every day we try to help our children learn to love to learn. And that's all that matters. Now, curriculum people wouldn't ever want me to know that I say this out loud to parents, but the truth is, in all the years that we homeschooled, y'all, we never finished curriculum. The only curriculum we ever finished every year was our math. We did get through math, but science, social studies, reading, English, I mean, typically we made it about halfway through a book that I thought we were going to finish that year. But what happened is we learned to love to learn and have very successful children who have done some really difficult things in their careers. It works itself out. But teaching character, teaching the gospel of Jesus Christ, there is no substitute for that. And have some fun because you're making memories.
Mhm. Thank you so much. So,
You're-
thank you for being here, Monica. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Blessings to you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, yes. And I'm Carrie Beck with Homeschool Coffee Break. We'll talk to you next time.